Good morning, everybody, and especially to all participants in this fourth biannual statistics conference organized by the Central Bank of Chile. I would like to give a special welcome to speakers and participants representing international organizations, statistical offices, and central banks from different parts of the world that are joining us from different time zones through video conference. This event, whose first edition was held in 2015, has established itself as a space for the analysis and reflection of leading experts in the preparation of macroeconomic statistics. We hope to honor this record in an edition dedicated to post-pandemic statistics. Despite its title, this conference will be held entirely by video conference. Post-pandemic statistics, as illustrated by the video conferencing, may be considered an overly optimistic title today. Although 21 months have passed since the first case of COVID-19 in the world, the pandemic is still far from over, especially in countries that are lagging behind in the vaccination process. The economic and social effects of this episode will be also with us for a long time. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused profound changes in the way of living and producing, and statistical work is not an exception to that. Uncertainty in confronting a health, economic, and social shock of unprecedented magnitude has raised exponentially the demand for real-time information. In the case of economic data, we have generated and received an unprecedented demand for earlier and more frequent indicators. Social distancing and lockdowns, however, also affected the traditional mechanisms of collecting data. The usual flow of information was abruptly altered due both to the impossibility of carrying out survey fieldwork and paralyzed many reporters like air travel companies, restaurants and hotels, leisure services, among others. In this scenario, statistical offices and central banks reacted by speeding up the development and use of new indicators based on less traditional and high-frequency sources of information, such as administrative records and open data available on the internet. The access to this information and the management of it was possible thanks to the application of advanced analytical techniques and providing more timely and granular information than conventional statistics. Such work was not entirely new, however. In 2019, many statistical offices and central banks were already using big data, web scraping, machine learning, and text analysis techniques for the collection and transformation of data on prices, job vacancies, or characterization of companies. These undoubtedly formed the basis of what was to come. New indicators were integrated into the information delivered to the public under the label of experimental statistics, thus expanding the access to less explored areas of economic behavior, such as mobility statistics or sentiment analysis. Meanwhile, as I mentioned before, the use of administrative records was expanded and deepened with the main advantage in the complete or almost complete coverage of the target population, given that most of them are collected under legal mandate. Indeed, during the pandemic, its collection and transmission through digital media was consolidated, and the authorities in charge knew the benefits of sharing the information, committing themselves to provide a continuous flow for the production of statistics. This allowed us to counteract the difficulties faced by some surveys and censuses that in certain cases had to be postponed and in others adapted towards telephone or web formats instead of face-to-face and with shorter questionnaires. The Central Bank of Chile has not been alien to this pre- and post-pandemic trend. Our statistics team has been busy preparing new statistics, delivering new breakdowns, and deepening microdata analysis, most of which had already started with our 2018-2022 strategic plan. Indeed, in mid-2019, we began to publish our Internet Job Posting Index built from the main job portals available in Chile. In addition, we began efforts to broaden our access to tax data, such as digital returns and invoices, accessing unprecedented granularity with respect to traditional sources of information. This enriched our work in national accounting, including a greater disaggregation of our monthly indicator of economic activity, IMASEC. The richness of tax information is almost endless. This helped us to monitor the behavior of sales in the course of the crisis, the chain impact of firm closures, the distinct impact of the crisis throughout the territory, and so on. In the case of firms, we integrated the use of sales data, access to bank credit and markups, which is not commonly available in every country, to assess the role played by macroeconomic policies. This allowed us to observe that Chilean companies suffered a very significant and heterogeneous shock across sectors, with sharp drops in sales and big increases in the number of businesses that stopped reporting sales in the most critical time of the pandemic. Later, with the gradual adaptation of individuals and businesses to the new sanitary conditions, plus the boost to consumption from fiscal transfers, the withdrawal of pension funds, and the credit programs to firms, the recovery of the economy began to show up through sales, their sectoral composition, size, and hiring intensity. The recovery was also clearly visible in the business relationships between the firms and their suppliers. In the case of the labor market, to overcome the limitations inherent in the publication of surveys exposed to fieldwork constraints and usual time delays, we have supplemented the official information with data on pension fund contributions or unemployment insurance applications. Survey-based information has been especially useful during the pandemic. Moreover, the historical surveys carried out by the central bank, such as the Bank Lending Survey and the Economic Expectations Survey, we added the qualitative information collected in the framework of our business perception report, equivalent to the Fed Gray Book, Beige Book, which has provided relevant background for policy formulation. Of course, with this broadened access to administrative data and more intensive work in collecting qualitative information, creates more risks related to data confidentiality. And this also led the Central Bank of Chile to strengthen its management and security of data. Considering the receipt of new large volume databases and the use of granular data almost always poses a challenge of confidentiality. And we have sought to complement best practices and safeguards to exploit such information. For this reason, in 2020, the data governance program was formed, led by a strategic committee that reports directly to the board of the central bank and whose executive management is based in the statistical division. Likewise, tools available for the management of massive information began to be explored, generating the Big Data Strategic Project that considers a centralized data repository that can be accessed by all user areas. It should be noted, however, that a centralized tool that provides access to harmonized and integrated granular information is not free of costs and challenges. The most relevant of these are to develop and maintain a complex IT infrastructure and to ensure that the data stored is of high quality, as well as to guarantee its safety and confidentiality. In the course of this conference, we will learn from the experience of other institutions in the same issues, but we will also review what are the challenges that the production of statistics will face in the most immediate future and in the years ahead. I would like to take this opportunity to stress how important it is for a country to have a statistical institutional framework. The Central Bank of Chile considers positive and relevant the proposed legislation currently under discussion in Congress that creates a new institutional framework for the national statistical system aimed at strengthening such framework in accordance with best international practices and recognizing the roles of the National Institute and the Central Bank as the main entities responsible for compiling and publishing economic statistics in the country. It also promotes the collaboration, coordination, and exchange of information between both entities. Finally, and having a longer-term horizon in mind, I would like to touch on two aspects of the future development of statistics. First, given the series of global environmental events of the recent years, as well as the United Nations Climate Report published in August, have made a priority to include climate change and the quantification of biodiversity and ecosystem services in economic analysis. This is essential to ensure that the development of our economies is sustainable as it protects nature and ensures the well-being of future generations. To this end, it is essential to have official statistics that meet the growing demand for information to determine the social and economic impact of climate change and to control the financial vulnerabilities arising from the physical and transitory risks. As a first step in this direction, the board of the Central Bank of Chile agreed to join the Natural Capital Committee created by the Ministry of the Environment and supported by the National Council of Science, Technology, Knowledge, and Innovation, whose objective is to advise and provide recommendations for the measurement of Chile's natural assets. I would also like to mention the growing interest in distributional analysis that links aspects of inequality to macroeconomic evolution. The international experience shows that central banks, mainly those from advanced economies, have begun to focus on these issues, for example, by publishing statistical distributions of household income, consumption, and wealth, traditionally published in aggregate form, with the framework provided by the system of national accounts. In this context, and by virtue of the increasing availability of microdata as central bank, we will initiate a project whose results will include distribution measures comparable and consistent with national accounts measurements. I conclude by saying that the availability of high quality and timely statistics has been invaluable for understanding the spread of the pandemic and its impact on the economy. The Central Bank of Chile will continue to contribute to the understanding of relevant macroeconomic phenomena based on the growing analytical possibilities that open up with the availability of microdata. I finish by thanking Jose Francisco Fernandez, Helen Parker, and Beatriz Velázquez for putting together this conference. I also thank Maria Jose Reyes for her help in managing the logistics of it all. As a user of macroeconomic statistics, I look forward to the debates today and tomorrow. I have no doubt that this conference will enrich our knowledge of alternative sources of information to further appreciate the importance and richness of the exchange of information among institutions and to show us the way in which in terms of the future of statistics across the world. Thank you very much. And I wish you a fruitful discussion across the next 2 days.